taking a break from my best friend of 9 years. Is it the right choice? As a single mom navigating life with a challenging friendship and my daughter's well-being at stake, I delivered Christmas gifts to her door and said I needed a break. Am I overreacting, or is it okay to prioritize my peace? I sincerely apologize in advance for the length of this message, but I urgently need assistance. I require advice. I, a 24-year-old female, am a single mother to my 5-year-old daughter. I work full-time and strive to do my best. My best friend, who is also 24 years old and female, has been there for me since we were 16, and I have done the same for her. We met at our first job, where we worked exceptionally well together. Since then, we have become like sisters. We have experienced ups and downs and all the typical challenges of a friendship. Now, years later, she is married, has a very stressful but successful career, and overall, I am immensely proud of her and her achievements. I am not faring as well, but I am managing to keep my head above water and doing everything I can for myself and my daughter. This friend adores my daughter. She has loved her from the moment she learned of my pregnancy and even has my daughter's name tattooed on her. We also share matching tattoos. This illustrates that this woman is genuine, loyal, and I love her with all my heart. However, the reason I am experiencing so much difficulty is because my friend also has borderline personality disorder. Her mental health often fluctuates, and I try to support her and be a positive outlet. At the same time, I have my mental health struggles and minimal support besides myself to cope, so I could certainly improve in that area. For much of the past year, we have both encountered independent challenges, and through this, I consistently found myself supporting her with little support for myself. When I attempt to express my issues, they often seem overshadowed by her problems. It feels as if she is trying to compete with me in terms of stress, which I have chosen to overlook. A significant incident occurred a few months ago. I work as a home health caregiver and travel to various surrounding towns. While traveling to a client, I spotted her car coming off the same exit on the highway, so I recognized it was her husband. She was at work, and I knew she would be driving her other car. At the red light, I took a picture of her car, texted it to her, and said, "Hey, I found your husband." From that point on, she was utterly convinced that I was deliberately trying to have an affair with him. She subjected me to an interrogation before I could defend myself. I do not even have her husband's phone number. After attempting to reason with her and being called a liar, and after being attacked for what I essentially intended as a joke, I stopped speaking to her for a couple of weeks. Eventually, she sent letters to my home, attributing her reaction to her borderline personality disorder and apologizing while promising to take responsibility for her actions. I called her, established boundaries, and we resumed our normal friendship. We agreed that she would seek therapy and that she needed to work on herself as she displayed similar behavior with her family, which was toxic for everyone involved. As time passed, there were many instances of her not only being a somewhat disappointing friend, but also letting my daughter down. She would promise to go trick-or-treating with us and then cancel at the last minute, only to go out to party instead. She also missed significant occasions she had vowed to attend. Gradually, I realized that she did not care. At a certain point, I recognized there was no standard of respect for me, my daughter, and our time. Consequently, I stopped making the effort. I understand that we are adults and busy with our lives. However, once I stopped trying, I realized she continued to text me, but only to lament about how awful the world was: gloom, doom, and misery. I would suggest that she follow through with therapy, but she would just shrug it off and keep discussing the negativity surrounding her family. I attempted to be a friend by offering meaningful and constructive advice to help her regain control of her life, all while my own life was falling apart in its own way. This dynamic played out over a few months, with my suggestions ignored, positivity dismissed, and without support from her as a friend. At this point, the negativity began to wear on my spirit. Whenever we spoke, I would support her, but it left a bitter taste in my mouth. As Christmas approached, I was genuinely trying to create a pleasant holiday. I worked very hard to make sure my daughter had a memorable Christmas, even skipping lunches at work to achieve this. I sacrificed a lot, but I accepted it. She had also gotten my daughter some gifts, and I had purchased gifts for her as well. She wanted us to make the 45-minute drive from my home to hers on Christmas Day. It took some adjustments, but I was determined to make it work. I told my daughter, who possesses a genuine sense of Christmas magic, that we were going to see my friend. She was so excited, believing Santa had visited her house as well. However, my only condition was that we could not leave after 5 p.m. due to our family Christmas dinner. When I spoke to her, she was busy opening presents, picking fights, hiding, and repeating this cycle while updating me about it. We waited. All day. My daughter, who is quite impatient, kept asking when we would be going. When I say she texted me at 5:14 p.m. and expected me to load my daughter up and drive for 45 minutes, I mean it. I told her I could not make it due to dinner and bedtime. She responded affirmatively, but with an attitude. Weeks went by, and things remained the same, minus the holiday stress. We still had not exchanged gifts, and I was eager to give mine to her as soon as possible because I dislike clutter and want to keep things clean. She continued to claim she was busy, but would then inform me about how she spent her day shopping irresponsibly. Whatever, I guess. Eventually, the final straw occurred when she sent me some negative comments the very next morning. There was no good morning. Nothing like that, just complaints about her job and not wanting to go. I had been advising her for over a year to find something better, and I know she is capable, yet she refuses. I replied with an expression of sympathy and attempted to move on, mentioning that I had just arrived at a gas station and reminiscing about when we used to go in and buy a bunch of items together. Her reply, "Yeah, my name," was clearly meant to come off as passive-aggressive. The mere presence of the period at the end was unnecessary. I chose not to respond. Her attitude snapped my patience. After finishing work, I went home, fueled by frustration. I grabbed all the Christmas presents and left them in the hallway of her apartment, writing her name on them, rather poorly. With a Sharpie I found in my car, said nothing, and left. In my mind, I felt I had distanced myself from the situation. I carried on with my day and genuinely felt at ease. It was as if I had just released a massive burden. I picked up my daughter from school and even treated her to dinner that evening. However, she texted me, stating she had found the presents and asked why I had done that, and insisted she would not open them without me present. I was busy attending to my daughter when I received that message and was determined to move on, so I replied that I needed a serious break from our friendship. I did not want to discuss it and would reach out when I felt ready. I was done. She expressed her regret, which I ignored. A few days later, she delivered gifts for my daughter, and we have not spoken since. So, am I overreacting regarding my friend, and should I apologize? Or is my friend neglecting her mental health issue, disregarding advice, and negatively impacting everyone around her, to such an extent that it has become toxic for me and my daughter to be near her? Story 2. My 20F, partner, 20F, always cancels plans with me and makes me feel bad for being upset about it. How do I talk to her about how she's making me feel? For context, my partner, we will call them Raven, and I attend the same school and have been in the same classes, often sitting next to each other. From there, we quickly became good friends in class and eventually started communicating through text and even calling each other frequently. As the year progressed, I began to develop romantic feelings for Raven and eventually asked them out, to which they responded positively, initiating our relationship. However, as our relationship has continued, I have noticed some things about Raven. For starters, Raven tends to become ill frequently, which results in them missing a significant amount of school. Naturally, one cannot control becoming sick, but this has gradually started to negatively affect our relationship. Even before we began dating, I would make plans with Raven to hang out, whether at my house or going out somewhere like the park, only for Raven to cancel on me the day of the plans. During the first few instances of this happening, I dismissed it and assured them that it was fine, and we could hang out when they felt better or on another day. However, this pattern has become frequent in our relationship and has made me quite upset. After it occurred a few more times, I decided to discuss my feelings with Raven. I expressed that I understood they could not help becoming sick, but it hurt when I was repeatedly canceled on. Raven acknowledged my feelings and apologized for making me feel that way, promising to take better care of themselves so that we could spend time together. I accepted the apology, but unfortunately, the promise they made was not upheld, as they continued to cancel on me. Time and again, I would be the one organizing plans for the two of us to hang out, only to receive a message from Raven on the morning of our get-together stating that they could not meet. This pattern also occurred outside of our hangouts. Sometimes, Raven would offer to give me a ride home from school since I do not have my driver's license at the moment. On one occasion, on my birthday last year, I had asked Raven if they could drive me home as I had many plans with my mother and wanted to rest before going out to celebrate. Raven agreed, and as the day progressed, they informed me that they could no longer take me home. I quickly texted a friend to request a ride instead. Once they confirmed they could pick me up, I said goodbye to Raven and hurried home. Later that evening, while I was out, I received a text from Raven expressing how upset they felt because I found a different ride and that they could not help it when plans went awry. In that same message, they also expressed that they were having a stressful week and feeling quite anxious, stating that I was not assisting the situation. I promptly replied, apologizing for my earlier actions, clarifying that it was not my intention to worsen their anxiety, and I did not mean to appear rude by seeking an alternative ride. I also communicated to Raven that in circumstances like this, I would prefer they inform me immediately so I am aware. Raven accepted my apology and promised they would improve their communication regarding issues instead of dropping unexpected news on me. However, this was yet another promise that went unfulfilled. At this point, Raven canceling plans became the norm, and I felt helpless, resorting to a forced smile while pretending everything was fine. It was particularly disheartening when they canceled on me again on our first anniversary together. I expressed my feelings, but once more, it ended similarly with another promise and another instance of me forgiving them. However, this time, I decided to share my thoughts with some friends. They expressed sympathy and reassured me that things happen and that Raven loves and wants to spend time with me. Trusting their perspective, I let it go, yet the pattern persisted. Eventually, when another cancellation occurred and I shared my feelings again, my thoughts were quickly minimized, and Raven's feelings took precedence in the conversation, often leaving me in the position of apologizing and pledging to improve. At the time, I did not recognize how toxic this dynamic had become, and I gradually began to accept it as normal as we entered the second year of our relationship. Recently, we celebrated our 2-year anniversary 3 weeks ago, during which Raven once again canceled, apologized, and promised to reschedule. It worsened when Raven unexpectedly shared an emotional revelation with me a few days after our anniversary. I will refrain from disclosing the specifics as I do not feel comfortable sharing them. I was at a loss for how to process my feelings. They had concealed something from me for weeks, only discussing it with me that night. I informed Raven that I needed time to comprehend what was happening, and they said they understood. Unsure of how to proceed, I called my best friend, let's call her Red, 20 years old, to seek her advice. We spoke for a while, and she suggested I communicate my feelings to Raven the following day, assuring me she would support me. I agreed and we concluded our call. The next day, I texted Raven to express my difficulty in understanding my feelings and my hurt that they had not come to me sooner regarding what was troubling them. They apologized, but redirected the conversation to their feelings, explaining that it was not easy for them to reveal what was happening. Feeling somewhat heartbroken and uncertain, I confided in my best friend. Red comforted me as I shared everything that had built up over the past 2 years, and she reassured me that Raven dismissing my feelings for their own was not acceptable, and my feelings were valid. Red also suggested that I discuss my feelings with Raven in person, which I agreed to. During our in-person conversation, it did not go well. Raven once again minimized my feelings, and it felt as though what I was saying was not being taken seriously. We exchanged views, with me attempting to convey my perspective, while Raven focused solely on their emotions and the challenges they faced. Eventually, I decided to cease the conversation. Later that day, I received a message from Raven expressing how they felt like an awful girlfriend and questioning how I could remain with them. They also stated that if I wished to break up, they would understand. Overwhelmed and exhausted, I cried once again and sent a message to Raven explaining that I did not want to end the relationship, but needed some time to myself. Currently, things are tense and awkward, and I am uncertain of how to proceed. How can I communicate to Raven how her actions are affecting me, and is there any advice on how to improve in the future? In summary, my girlfriend has canceled plans on me repeatedly for the past 2 years, which makes me feel guilty for being upset about it.